When workplace bullies cornered the quiet bridge maintenance worker, they triggered skills that had been used to eliminate terrorist cells in hostile territory. What happened next would expose a 15-year cover operation and reveal that America's most critical infrastructure had been protected by someone the government officially didn't know existed. Thomas Mitchell arrived at the Riverside Bridge at exactly 6:30 that morning, just like he had for 7 years running. At 62, he moved with the steady efficiency of a man who knew his job and never caused trouble. His coworkers saw him as the reliable guy who fixed cables and checked structural integrity without drama. What they didn't see was how his eyes constantly scanned for threats, how his positioning always kept escape routes open, how every movement was calculated for maximum tactical advantage. The Riverside Bridge wasn't just any bridge. Spanning the Columbia River at its narrowest point, it carried Interstate 84 traffic that connected 3 states. More importantly, it controlled access to the Bonneville Dam complex and the shipping lanes that carried 60% of the region's commercial cargo. In the wrong hands, this single choke point could cripple transportation and commerce across the entire Pacific Northwest. The first sign of trouble came when Victor Kane's construction crew arrived 3 hours early. Kane was supposedly running a routine foundation repair project, but Thomas had been watching them for weeks. Their equipment was wrong for the job. Their procedures were wrong for bridge work. And Kane himself moved like someone who had spent serious time in very dangerous places. Thomas had learned to trust his instincts during 28 years as a Navy SEAL. Those instincts were screaming that Kane's operation had nothing to do with construction. When Thomas saw them unloading equipment that looked suspiciously like demolition charges, he knew his quiet life was about to get very complicated very fast. But Thomas Mitchell wasn't really Thomas Mitchell. He was Master Chief Michael Torres, officially killed in action 15 years ago during a classified operation in Somalia. The government needed him dead on paper so he could live quietly and watch over critical infrastructure that enemies would kill to control. The Riverside Bridge wasn't just a bridge. It was a strategic choke point that could cripple transportation across 3 states if it went down. Torres had been handpicked for this assignment because of his unique combination of skills: underwater, demolition expertise, structural engineering knowledge, and the kind of tactical awareness that came from surviving the deadliest missions in SEAL history. He'd spent 15 years learning every bolt, cable, and support beam on this bridge. He knew exactly how to destroy it, which meant he knew exactly how to defend it. Kane noticed Thomas watching too closely around 10:30. When the construction foreman approached with 3 of his men, Thomas felt the familiar weight of danger settling over him like an old coat. Kane's opening question wasn't about bridge maintenance. It was about how long Thomas had been observing their operation and what exactly he thought he was seeing. Thomas gave the performance he'd been perfecting for 7 years. Confused maintenance worker, just doing his job, didn't understand what the problem was. But Kane wasn't buying it. The way Kane questioned him revealed interrogation training. The way his men positioned themselves showed tactical awareness. These weren't construction workers. They were operators. The situation escalated when Kane accused Thomas of conducting unauthorized surveillance. When Kane mentioned that Thomas's background check had some interesting gaps, Thomas realized his cover might be blown. But then Kane said something that changed everything. He mentioned Operation Deep Strike and asked if Thomas knew why a dead Navy SEAL's identification had been used to create the Thomas Mitchell identity. Kane wasn't a hostile contractor. He was federal intelligence, and he'd been hunting for Michael Torres for 3 months. Someone had leaked information about SEAL operatives who were supposed to be dead, and the government needed to know if Torres was still loyal or if he'd been turned by enemy forces. The bridge project was a trap designed to flush out a potential traitor. Thomas looked at the federal agents who'd been testing him and made the decision that would end 15 years of peaceful anonymity. When he responded using authentication codes that only Master Chief Torres would know, Kane's expression shifted from suspicion to relief. The dead SEAL was still on America's side, but Kane's next revelation was even more disturbing. The intelligence leak hadn't been random. Someone was systematically identifying and eliminating government assets who were operating under deep cover. 3 other dead operatives had been murdered in the past month, and Torres had been next on the list. The bridge operation was as much about protecting him as it was about testing his loyalty. Kane explained that hostile forces had been planning to use Torres's real identity to gain access to the bridge's critical systems. The Riverside Bridge wasn't just strategically important. It had been equipped with defensive capabilities that could be used to control river traffic and transportation corridors. In the wrong hands, those systems could be turned into weapons. The bridge's defensive systems were hidden in plain sight. What looked like routine maintenance equipment actually included surveillance cameras with facial recognition, communication jamming capabilities, and even concealed weapons platforms that could engage aerial threats. Torres had been maintaining these systems for 7 years without anyone knowing they existed. As Kane spoke, Thomas's trained awareness picked up movement in his peripheral vision. Black SUVs were approaching the bridge from both directions, and the men getting out weren't carrying construction equipment. They were carrying automatic weapons and equipment that looked designed for rapid tactical operations. Kane's radio crackled with urgent reports. The hostile forces they'd been expecting had arrived ahead of schedule. The men approaching the bridge were the same team that had eliminated the other deep cover operatives. They'd come to capture Torres and force him to give them access to the bridge's defense systems. Thomas Mitchell disappeared in that moment, and Master Chief Torres took his place. When he told Kane that the bridge could be defended, but they needed to move fast, his voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent decades turning impossible tactical situations into victories. The federal agents suddenly understood why this particular SEAL had been chosen to guard this particular target. The attacking force consisted of 12 operators moving in three teams of 4. Torres's tactical assessment was immediate and professional. They were using standard assault patterns, but they'd made the crucial mistake of not understanding the terrain they were attacking. The bridge wasn't just a structure. It was a fortress that had been prepared for exactly this kind of assault. The first hostile team reached the bridge platform while Torres was explaining defensive positions to Kane's agents. What happened next demonstrated why Navy SEALs were considered the most dangerous operators in the world. Torres moved through the attacking force with precision that seemed almost casual, neutralizing threats with techniques that left enemies unconscious but breathing. Kane's agents watched in amazement as Torres used the bridge's structure itself as a weapon. Cable systems became restraints, maintenance platforms became chokepoints, and the industrial equipment Torres had been servicing for 7 years became components in a defensive strategy that turned the entire bridge into a tactical fortress. The second assault team tried to flank from the opposite end of the bridge, but Torres had anticipated this move years ago. When he activated concealed defensive systems, sections of the bridge deck became impassable barriers, while hidden cameras provided complete surveillance coverage of every approach. The attackers found themselves trapped in kill zones they couldn't see until it was too late. But the attacking force was larger and better equipped than Kane had expected. When the third team arrived with helicopter support, Torres realized this wasn't just an assassination attempt. This was a full-scale assault designed to capture the bridge and its defensive systems intact. Someone wanted to control the Riverside chokepoint permanently. Torres's assessment of the tactical situation was grimly professional. The attacking force had superior numbers and air support, but they'd made the crucial error of assuming their target was an isolated operative, rather than someone who'd spent 7 years preparing the bridge for exactly this kind of assault. The helicopter circled overhead, its door gunner searching for targets while the pilot tried to find a landing zone on the bridge deck. But Torres had prepared for aerial threats too. When he activated the bridge's concealed air defense systems, the helicopter's pilot suddenly found himself dealing with electronic warfare capabilities that could disable his aircraft systems without destroying it. Kane coordinated with federal backup while Torres systematically eliminated the remaining assault teams. His 15 years of bridge maintenance had given him intimate knowledge of every hiding place, every angle of fire, every tactical advantage the structure offered. The attackers were fighting on his terrain by his rules, using weapons and tactics he'd been preparing to counter for years. The battle for the Riverside Bridge lasted 47 minutes. When federal reinforcements finally arrived, they found a scene that would remain classified for decades. The attacking force had been systematically defeated by defensive tactics that demonstrated why certain strategic positions required protection by the most elite operators in American military history. 12 hostile operatives had been neutralized without a single fatality. Torres's precision had been surgical, disabling threats while preserving the possibility of interrogation. Kane's agents had witnessed combat techniques that weren't supposed to exist, applied with a level of expertise that redefined their understanding of what one man accomplished in a defensive position. Kane's after-action report would describe the most sophisticated infrastructure defense operation ever conducted by a single SEAL operative. Torres had protected a critical choke point while maintaining his cover identity until the last possible moment, then revealed capabilities that transformed a routine bridge into an impregnable fortress. But the investigation revealed disturbing intelligence about the scope of the threat they'd faced. The attacking force had been planning simultaneous assaults on multiple strategic positions across the region. The Riverside Bridge was just one target in a coordinated operation designed to seize control of critical infrastructure across several states. Torres understood that his 15 years of quiet maintenance work were over forever. The attack had exposed programs that were supposed to remain buried, forcing acknowledgement of assets that officially didn't exist. His peaceful life as Thomas Mitchell was ending, but his real value as a strategic defender was finally being recognized. The federal investigation revealed that the intelligence leak had come from the highest levels of government. Someone with access to the most classified military records had been selling information about deep cover assets to hostile forces. Torres's successful defense had prevented one disaster, but the network of compromised operatives was much larger than anyone had realized. As federal teams secured the bridge, Master Chief Torres began planning his next mission. The enemies who'd found him wouldn't stop with one failed assault. They'd keep coming until they controlled every strategic choke point in America. The bridge worker had been a cover story, but the war for America's critical infrastructure was just beginning. The quiet man who'd spent 7 years fixing cables and checking structural integrity was about to become the most important homeland security asset in the country. But first, he had to help the government understand that there were other bridges, other choke points, and other enemies still planning to turn America's infrastructure into weapons. Torres's expertise would be crucial in identifying other vulnerable positions and the assets protecting them. His successful defense of the Riverside Bridge had proven that the program worked, but it had also revealed how many enemies were working to destroy it. The real battle was just beginning, and America's survival might depend on a handful of operators who officially didn't exist. This incredible story required extensive research to ensure accuracy in its tactical and military details. If you enjoyed discovering Master Chief Torres's hidden mission, make sure to subscribe to Untold Legends Stories for more amazing tales of ordinary people protecting extraordinary secrets. Hit that notification bell and let us know in the comments what you thought of this incredible revelation. We publish new stories every day, and tomorrow's tale will show you that sometimes the most dangerous battles are fought by people who appear to be living completely ordinary lives. Your support means everything to us.